Sky News has sat down with Holocaust survivor Eddie Boas, who has shared his life as a Jewish boy living in Holland during World War II. The documentary details the powerful story of how a family of four, including a father, mother and two sons aged 8 and 4, survived the Holocaust. The Boas family is the only known family to have entered and left a Nazi concentration camp together.
Both my parents' families had been murdered completely. 26 members of my mother's family had been murdered and 37 members of my father's family had been murdered in concentration camp. 63 close family members. I never had a grandmother, I never had an auntie, I never had an uncle, and I never had a cousin. After the war, there was just the four of us, my brother, my father, my mother, and myself. That was our family.
And joining me live now is Holocaust survivor Eddie Boas, the star of that documentary. Eddie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's much appreciated. Now, of course, the story of the Holocaust can't be forgotten, and this documentary is raw and confronting, of course, as it should be. We were told that the rise of the Nazis to power and their anti-Semitism happened slowly and then all of a sudden all at once. What's your memory of their rise to power during that period?
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Sky, for showing my documentary. The rise of the Nazis in Holland started from 1931 when the Nazi Party was set up. It was pretty slow, but sure. And as time went on, and this is my mother telling me this, I was too young in those days, or I wasn't even born in the 1930s. But my mother and my father had many non-Jewish friends and lived in a suburb of The Hague, which was a mixed suburb of all religions. And they set each other's babies and went out together. But as 1930s went on, and in 1934 there was an election, and some of the Nazis got into parliament, which was repeated in 1939, and a census showed that about 70% of the Dutch population had turned against the Jews, and anti-Semitism was rife.
You were born in 1940 and you spent part of your childhood in concentration camps as well. In fact, you're the only known family of four to survive. Tell us a little bit about your reflections during your childhood, during that incredible time.
Well, it was obviously very difficult, and clothing, and we were in Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. We were there for 14 months, which is a long time in a concentration camp, which became a death camp. Over 60,000 people were murdered there. My father had a job of picking up all the bodies on the ground and out of the barracks, which in the end helped save our life. My parents just did as they were told by the Nazis in the camp, the guards. And my mother was very much a Dutch woman. Dutch women are very strong-minded, and she had quite a few arguments with the Nazi guards, but we survived miraculously.
And, you know, it's such an important reminder of this time in history, which we mustn't let happen again. But you write here that you wouldn't think that you would have lived to see history repeating itself. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I came here when I was a 14-year-old in 1954. And my father had died in 1948. So it was my mother, my brother, and by then I had a little sister, and myself. I was 14, my sister was 7, and my brother was 18. We came here to get away from Europe, and my mother made the decision that she wanted to go as far away from Europe as possible, which happens to be Australia. And we came out here on a boat. I went to school, my sister went to school, we lived at Coogee. In the first few months we didn't have any beds, we slept on a mattress on the floor. My mother got a job straight away as a cleaning lady at the Coogee Bay Hotel. and I went to school in Maroubra Junction, we would never think in those days that anti-Semitism would become like it is today in Australia. And every immigrant Jew from those days that are still alive, and I've spoken to, had exactly the same thinking. We came here to be free. And we were for a long, long time. I'd never came across anti-Semitism in Australia till 7 October 2023. And I'm afraid, and what I'm saying now, I really mean, I blame the federal government.
Is that when you started to notice this rise of anti-Semitism, this recent rise of anti-Semitism in Australia? Was it that October 7 attack, or were you sort of feeling it a little bit more before then?
No, never before that. I can honestly say never. But the whole atmosphere changed after October 7, and the way and I'm not blaming the police, but the way the police allowed these people to say "guess the Jews" or whatever they reckon it was, and other things, should never have happened. The Minister of Police should have warned the police to be on the lookout for things like that, and arrested people. They never arrested anybody, so everybody else joined in.
And we've seen some horrific acts of anti-Semitism, from fire bombings of synagogues and, of course, now, tragically, Australia's worst terror attack in history, which claimed the lives of 15 people. Do you think people are forgetting the horrors of what the Nazis did back in World War II for this rise in anti-Semitism to start up again?
Oh, absolutely. I over the last few years, since I published the book in 2017, I've spoken all over the world, and also many, many schools in Australia, both private and public schools. And I've spoken to Christian people in Christian groups of people. And yes, most in the questions that I ask, I always have a Q&A. A lot of people had no idea what the Holocaust was all about. And I understand that.
Yeah, I remember learning about it as essential education in primary school, and I think about 8 years ago doing a story during one of my first jobs as a reporter in regional Victoria and speaking to survivors then, and they mentioning the dangers of history repeating itself and the importance of not being a bystander, not watching things happen but acting so it doesn't get to extreme points. Obviously, we know that there has been a rise in anti-Semitism now here in Australia. Do you think our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, is doing enough to combat anti-Semitism?
Absolutely not. That's a simple answer I have.
And why do you say that?
Well, nobody can show me what he's done. You know, people are still not being arrested. People should go to jail. Globalized intifada. Words lead to death. It starts with words and it finishes in death. And I've written a story about this which actually shows a photograph depicting that. And nothing is being done about it. It's all talk. There should be a royal commission.
Yeah, well, Eddie Boas, extremely powerful warning there, and this documentary is essential viewing. Even if you, of course, know a lot about the Holocaust, definitely tune in and watch this, because seeing those images again and just reliving the horrors of the Holocaust, it's just it's an essential reminder for people, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, you can watch that documentary, Reflections of Courage, on Sky News tomorrow at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight.